Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct from BZ Sierra Nevada Airy in occupied California, doing the job the American media maggots won't, featuring right thinking from a left brain, working without a net and under an assassination order. Here is the Bloviating Zeppelin.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Oh, you magnificent bastard, I read your book. I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch! Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Welcome and good evening. It is 8:02 on the left coast, Pacific time. It's 11:02 on the East Coast, Eastern Time. In Bolivia at 1749 and 723.225, page 60, drawer 7, way in the back. But I could never understand Bolivian time. Who can? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K. A mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets. And at the end of the show, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, and palatial SHR Media Studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from downtown Sacramento. Be forewarned, what you're about to hear for the next 2 hours consists of my opinion and my opinion only. The saloon is serving stiff drinks, facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense out of the front and back doors, depending on the fear porn quotient. And remember this, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon, where the speech is free but the booze is not. This is 2021, and I am done with bipartisanship and compromise. And understand, I'm also done with the Republican Party. This is the new age of modern political warfare, gaslighting, lies, massive hypocrisy, half-truths, threats, and all on the part of the Democrats, leftists, anarchists, and abetted by their propaganda organs, the American media maggots. They have all declared we are on an open war footing against you. Tonight for 2 hours, I have a tribute to Rush Limbaugh. And with luck and the creek don't rise, I'm going to have a couple of very wonderful guests here tonight. I believe that I've already contacted Jeremy Hansen from Unleash Jeremy Hansen. Have I got you there, Jeremy?
Yes, you do.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
You do.
Beautiful. And thank you for being here, because you do about 75 shows a day, and your voice is going. and I appreciate your being here. I appreciate your beering here. Now, you may be beering in Missouri, which is okay. It's all, it's okay to beer.
Right.
And then I believe also on the teleola phone.
I like beering.
I know. I have Ken McClinton. Ken, are you present and accounted for, sir?
I am present and accounted for.
Excellent. And then in a bit, I believe we're going to have Jack Alexander from Australia. And the reason he's not here right now is because, as opposed to us where it's winter and there's about 3 feet of snow in Texas, and they have no power because they're reliant on green energy. That's a story for another time. Jack had to go pick up his kids today because it's summer down there, and he said it's too hot for the kids to walk. Oh, poor kids. I had to walk in the snow uphill both ways, to and from school. So please tell your children, Jack Alexander, to sack up one each or two each, to each his own, depending on how many kids you have. But with luck, he should be with us in, I don't know, maybe a half hour or so he connotes. Tonight.
This
BC,
is an
BC, if I
SHR
could
Media
just interject
Network
real quick.
special report.
You didn't want to hear about the special report, Ken?
No, I just want to interject to the American people what exactly is going to happen to us when Joe Biden takes away our guns and ammo. We're going to become wimpy just like Jack Alexander.
Oh, listen, as I said Tuesday night, oh gosh, yes. I said, sometimes people, my mother-in-law told me this just before she passed away. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2007. I met her twice. In 2 months, she passed away. Literally, when you get pancreatic cancer, you turn orange. It's almost, it's even worse than Donald Trump's worst makeup artist. And that's pretty heavy. But she said, BZ, because that's my name, she said, BZ, I want to let you know this. Sometimes people and institutions and states exist on this planet as illustrations of nothing more than what not to do. And that would be Texas. But
yeah.
And Australia, since you happen to bring that up.
Yeah, and I love Texas and its dependency on Chinese magnets for its windmills. How's that working for you?
Yeah. Okay, before we get into Rush Limbaugh, because allegedly this show tonight is going to be 2 hours full of a tribute to Rush Limbaugh. However, since you opened the door, Ken McClinton, and I fully expect you to walk through it, do you think that the Texas governor right now, excuse me, does he have a career at the end of his term in Texas?
Well, if anything, we should be more concerned by the fact that Ted Cruz is in Cancun relaxing and enjoying himself with his family. Apparently, he must be the governor of Texas, responsible for the state appropriations dealing with energy. So we all should be looking at Ted Cruz as the reason why it snowed and the magnets from China no longer work.
Okay, all right. Even this early in the show, I'm going to go ahead with that. And this is why. To all of you morons who are excoriating Ted Cruz, let me remind you, if I may, about the nature of politics. And that is this: it's not the federal government's job to make sure that you have electricity. Hello. Greg Abbott is the governor, one each, in Texas. Texas, by the way, for those of you excoriating Ted Cruz, who does deserve excoriation at times, just not for this. Ted Cruz doesn't have anything to do with setting electrical power in the state of Texas. Perhaps some of you who don't like Ted for this might want to look up the definition of the United States and might want to look up the definition of a state and then go to your Constitution and look up on page, 70 or something like that, go to the 10th Amendment and take a peek. Take a peek at that if you think that Ted Cruz magically, mystically, all of a sudden is responsible for your ills. I'm not saying, people in Texas, that you're not having a terrible time. It is a bit of schadenfreude, since some personnel who are from Texas have said to me, you need to get the hell out of California. Always spelled it with a K, obviously, come on. Facts and evidence, Captain Obvious, hello, get out of California. But we're making fun of me because we have 2 seasons, drought and wildfires. And we're saying that, all the crap that's going on in Texas, or in California, always spell it with a K, is so much worse than what's going on in Texas, comma. Really? Right now? You guys... You guys told me that you have an independent grid. And then we discover that somewhere along the line, the state, let me restate this, the state decided to let wind power deliver a full fourth of the energy to Texas. Perhaps this is just a bit of time for introspection, because you never thought that this would be the time for shovels. And it is.
It is so sad that a state that has its own gold reserve, a state that prides itself on having created the most jobs in any state of the union over the past decade, a state that has won the heart of Elon Musk and Tesla and Hewlett Packard and all these other great states, have forgotten the golden rule. Once those companies leave their state, they need to renounce their ideology and accept the Texas way of life, which is not only gold but oil and fossil fuels. And, those are some good ways of keeping yourself warm when the rest of the world is going cold. It's amazing to me that they haven't figured that out just ornately yet. After all these years, after all that oil that they have in Texas, they still haven't figured out that windmills are for Don Quixote and not for energy.
Okay. That's a really good point. Ken, thank you for doing that. Let me pull out my pen and pencil here. I got to write this down. It's not easy. It's kind of long-winded.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I also give kudos to the Texas Mayor, Tim Boyd, who resigned this afternoon after just being brutally honest with folks. This is why I love Texas, real Texas. Not you phony people who move there and you get offended by what people say. Tim Boyd said, "Let me hurt some feelings while I have a minute. No one owes you or your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim, it's your choice. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing. I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout. If you don't have electricity, you step up and come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe. If you have no water, you deal without and think outside of the box to survive and supply water to your family. If you are sitting at home in the cold because you have no power and are sitting there waiting for someone to come rescue you because you're lazy, is direct. He said something else, but I can't say it. Your lazy is direct result of your raising.
You can. But isn't it the weirdest? It's like Texas gets the new Darwin Award for sitting on 75 billion cubic yards of gas and propane that they can convert to propane to make the generators run from their propane tanks to the generator to keep their houses lighted and warm. Of all the states that you would think people might have something like that, I guess no one got the memo, evidently, that a full 25% of your state has converted to big, long, tall things that kill birds and lock up and leak oil down the massive column when they don't work. Huh.
Well, I've got to step in here and defend Texas a little bit.
Okay.
Joe Biden is the one that stopped the natural gas plants, and we don't store natural gas. We make enough natural gas to get us through the year. And Joe Biden stepped in and said, you guys fill the orders, excuse me, for all these states around you that have bought from you, and then you guys shut it down. So they shut down these wells, and the wells froze shut. Otherwise, they do have backups. This is completely 110% caused by the executive order from Joe Biden. Flat out, period. And I know that. I know that because I live in Missouri, and our natural gas comes from Texas and New Mexico. And I've actually gotten text messages from them saying, we're out of natural gas. There's nothing we can do. So if you guys don't slow down, you guys will be out of heat. So this is all done by Joe Biden. It's just the media won't talk about it.
Wonderful. Now, that looks like that's something to research. However, all of this does fall into something similar to
Tales from the You Can Write This Shit department. Graciously presented by BZ. Here in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Because you can't write stuff like that. And apparently that was completely unforeseeable. Before I go any further, Jeremy Hansen, you have a radio show. You have 2 radio shows. So tell people where you can be heard on both of those shows. Where do they go and what time and days?
All right. Go to Spreaker Monday through Friday for Morning Crankers, which is like a comedy / political just goof around show. And that's at 9 o'clock in the morning Central Time. And then Unleash Jeremy Hansen at 5 o'clock on Spreaker. And, everywhere else podcasts are, I'm there. You can go to YouTube also. It's on there. That is at 5 o'clock Central. And, I want to lighten it up there a little bit. I want to cover the spectrum, if you know what I mean. I want it to be funny, but then I also want it to be soul crushing. So that's what that is.
Okay. We're not crushing cars anymore. We're crushing souls. Jeremy, thank you very much for that. And Ken McClinton, owner of TECN, where is it that we can find your show and everything associated with Tekken?
Well, you can go to TECNTV.com. You can use your Green Energy certificate that will give you entry to the Exceptional Conservative Show Monday through Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we enjoy being able to preach the good news of Jesus Christ, also capitalism, constitutionalism, conservatism, and individual sovereignty to the world.
Excellent, excellent. We may or may not see Jack Alexander. I'll just wait for that. Yesterday, something entirely unforeseen to me occurred. And my next statement is going to seem kind of weird, maybe even a bit callous. Oh, gosh, how do I say this? Not necessarily callous, but perhaps a bit bizarre. Has there ever been anyone in your life, not a family member, that their death affected you in a certain way? I'll give you my 4. My father's passing in 2009, just 7 days ago, as a matter of fact, in 2009. Affected me greatly. After my mom passed in 2002, I got to know my dad better than at any other time, and his passing greatly impacted me. It's one of those things where you just expect him to be there, 'cause he always has, and you just think he always will. Oddly enough, I put that into the category of there's a singer-songwriter by the name of Warren Zevon, who I woke up one day and heard he'd passed. That left a bit of hollow in my heart. And then Ronald Reagan passed, and he left a bit of a hollow in my heart. And it seems weird to equate these people with my father, of all things. But to me, these folks personally were of such import that I was affected by them. I would place Rush Limbaugh into this category for a number of reasons, some of which I would like to discuss tonight. Now, for tonight, I have a number of audio cuts, and some that I kind of had to dig long and hard to find. And for me, it was particularly impactful because I, too, used to work for KFBK in the 70s. I worked there 10 years before Rush got there. There were an entirely different set of individuals at KFBK. They used to be at 21st and Q Street in Sacramento. And when Rush came to town, that was when KFBK was off of Ethan Way. They had already moved. I met him briefly. He would never remember who the hell I was. I used to know somebody that was in there, and I just met him in passing. I'm not trying to say I'm Rush's best friend, but it was interesting because I still then and now have a great interest in radio. And the reason that I wanted to have Jeremy Hansen here tonight and Ken McClunton here tonight is because, as we discussed about 2.5 weeks ago with regard to social media and the radio shows that they produce and the television that they produce, they are in social media. Ken has been in radio. Jeremy is in radio. And when radio nerds get together, we like to talk about radio. Imagine that. So it was stunning. I mean, everybody saw it. Everybody knew. But it was still a shock to wake up yesterday, Wednesday, and find that at the age of 70, host Rush Limbaugh died of lung cancer. And he had already been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer a year before. And I went to social media. As you would expect, there are any number of stories, articles, etc. about Rush Limbaugh. And yeah, okay, let's admit up front, Rush Limbaugh was a smoker, first of cigarettes and then of cigars. Okay, I'm just admitting that up front. But tonight what I'd like to do with the two of you, and perhaps Jack if he gets here, is take everybody on a little bit of a journey to more fully understand and appreciate Rush Limbaugh. And that's the point of me doing this tonight. When I was working at KFBK, I was in the AM side and the FM side, and I was on a whole bunch of other radio stations as the proverbial disc jockey. And when I was at KFBK, I worked traffic as a traffic reporter. I was an FM programmer, a news editor. Can you imagine me editing the news and deciding what you guys are going to hear on a 50,000-watt flamethrower? That's fucking frightening. That's just frightening. But all of that at KFBK. And then with other stations, I was a station manager, program director, promotions director, and I was on air at a whole bunch of other different stations. I submit that Rush Limbaugh is a radio icon, a great supporter of America. And I would also submit that he single-handedly was responsible for providing a voice to conservatives who heretofore were mostly voiceless. America discovered that Rush had passed away and how incredibly difficult it must have been for his wife, Catherine, to say this fresh early in the morning yesterday on February 17th. But she got on his show and said this.
Hello, everyone. I know that I am most certainly not the Limbaugh that you tuned in to listen to today. I, like you, very much wish Rush was behind this golden microphone right now, welcoming you to another exceptional 3 hours of broadcasting. For over 32 years, Rush has cherished you, his loyal audience, and always look forward to every single show. It is with profound sadness I must share with you directly that our beloved Rush, my wonderful husband, passed away this morning due to complications from lung cancer. As so many of you know, losing a loved one is terribly difficult. Even more so when that loved one is larger than life. Rush will forever be the greatest of all time. Rush was an extraordinary man, a gentle giant, brilliant, quick-witted, genuinely kind, extremely generous, passionate, courageous, and the hardest working person I know. Despite being one of the most recognized, powerful people in the world, Rush never let the success change his core or beliefs. He was polite and respectful to everyone he met. Even most recently, when he was not feeling well in the hospital, he was so appreciative to every single doctor and nurse and custodian and first responder. He never wanted to put anyone out and always thanked them profusely for their help. From today on, there will be a tremendous void in our lives and, of course, on the radio. Rush loved our miraculous country beyond measure. An unwavering patriot. He loved our United States military, our flag, our Constitution, our founding fathers. He proudly fought and defended conservative values in a way that no one else can. Rush often stood up and took arrows on his own because he knew it was the right thing to do. Rush encouraged so many of us to think for ourselves, to learn, and to lead. He often said it did not matter where you started or what you look like. As Americans, we all have endless opportunities like nowhere else in the world. Rush gave us hope that through hard work and determination, we can overcome the obstacles in our lives and be our best. Many of you started small businesses or pursued personal dreams because Rush gave you the faith that you could. He made the most complex issues simple to understand, while making that level of genius look easy. It most certainly was anything but easy. Irreplaceable, remarkable talent. On behalf of the Limbaugh family, I would personally like to thank each and every one of you who prayed for Rush and inspired him to keep going. You rallied around Rush and lifted him up when he needed you the most. I am certain, without a shadow of a doubt, if he could be here today, he would be. He loved you, and he loved this radio program with every part of his being. Instead, we know our Rush is in heaven, encouraging us in the same way he always did on earth. Rush's love for our country and belief that our best days are ahead live on eternally. In Rush's honor, may we all continue Rush's mission in our individual lives and communities. I know all of you listening are terribly sad. We all are. I'm terribly sorry to have to deliver this news to you. God bless you, Rush, and God bless our country.
That was absolutely astounding. That was 5 minutes. It seemed like an hour. And that is how we discovered that a true American icon had died. Rush's last show was Tuesday, February 2nd, and he provided 2 hours of broadcasting excellence. This is how he ended up his show.
3 to 4 trees for every one they chop down. And I've mentioned that statistic to a lot of people. Whoa, Rush, you know what you're talking about. We got much less forest land today. No, we don't. We have as much, if not more, at the founding of the country.
Talking about regular stuff.
That statistic blows them away because they think we're down to practically nothing. And the founding of the country, we didn't have motorized saws or anything. We just, it was the frozen tundra out there. But the timber industry, Weyerhaeuser, all these people, they plant, for every tree they cut down, they plant 4 to 5 more. And you know what? There are forests whose only purpose is to create trees for wood. Yeah, that's right. They're in the business of growing wood. Wood is a very powerful commodity. It's very strong. It has so many uses. You can make a beautiful piano out of a tree trunk. You can make a gorgeous Stravinsky violin out of wood. You can also build homes out of wood. They are a commonly used American commodity. And the people in that business need to make sure they're not going to run out of it.
Then he talked about the Mars
sun.
lander.
Parachutes have to deploy. It has to land at the exact speed. If it doesn't, damage could happen. The rover could be destroyed at any phase of this landing. And nobody can stop it if something goes wrong because of how long it takes a command instruction sent from Earth to reach the rover, which at the point in time will be in orbit around Mars. Now, this just fascinates me, and I understand these controllers are going to be biting their nails and going nuts during these 7 minutes, being unable to correct anything. And for much of the 7 minutes, because of the heat generated by re-entry, they won't be able to have any communication with the rover at all. But even so, whatever communication they get would be delayed
Normal
because of how far
stuff
Mars is.
And then he changes.
Anyway, I got to take a break. I just noticed the clock. The time be back in just a second. Well, my friends, that's it. Yet another excursion into broadcast excellence in the can. Enjoyed being with you today. Always do, and look forward to the next time. Thanks to Mark Stein, who has been in standby mode all day. Wasn't sure I was going to be able to go today. And then each hour I had to assess. But we made it. Thank you, Mr. Stein. See you all next time.
See you all next time. That was it. And, well, we will. Just not in the radio format. Jack Alexander, are you here, sir?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. We have Ken McClinton here, and we also have Jeremy Hansen. Ken McClinton is from TECN TV, and Jeremy Hansen is from Unleash Jeremy Hansen. And I introduced their shows. Jack Alexander, since you're here tonight, please tell everybody about your radio show, because we are all radio personnel right here tonight. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, it's the Jack Alexander Experiment. It comes on 4 mornings a week, usually Monday to Thursday. It will be back on Monday. I'm feeling much better dealing with the health issues that I've had over the last couple of weeks. You'll find the podcasts everywhere good podcasts can be found. The videos are available on Facebook for as long as they let me, YouTube for as long as they let me. I live stream on Twitch, and I'm also now archiving on Rumble. And Rumble's probably the safest place if you can't find my videos anywhere.
Right, because it's the port, the temporary port in the storm right now. We're talking about Rush Limbaugh. And again, we've got Jeremy Hansen from Unleashed, Jeremy Hansen, Ken McClinton from TECN TV, and Jack Alexander from the Jack Alexander Experiment to talk about Rush Limbaugh. I wrote back in 2006, and this is where I would like to have you guys weigh in just a moment, that Rush Limbaugh provided the voice and the venue for those of a conservative bent, and a movement was started. There are those who would credit the political process itself for the right finding its voice, and certainly the Ronald Reagan years shouldn't be discounted, as it was during the temper of these times that Rush Limbaugh worked his way to syndication in 1988. From there, the culture wars may have officially begun, and after literally decades of ruling all forms of media and moreover, its content, liberals were really chagrined to discover that AM radio shortly became the bastion of conservatives. It took literally years for the left to even make any kind of inroads, if everybody remembers this stupid network called Air America. And we all know how solvent and powerful Air America is today, as in it doesn't exist. And then, of course, the internet blossomed. Conservatives took to the net like fish to water. And that led to, because I'm giving a little bit of history, this led to conservative magazines, which people don't read magazines anymore. Links to the internet, Fox News. Fox News, I think, came through in 1996. And so, as the voice of conservatives grew, so the left and leftists felt, because they were, let's face it, more challenged. Not everything they said and espoused was accepted by rote. Up until this point, it pretty much had been. People actually began to have the temerity to speak up and attempt to refute what the MSM said, what I call the American media maggots today. And it seemed then and now that they purposely lie and omit things. So, Jeremy Hansen, Ken McClinton, Jack Alexander, is this your interpretation of how Rush Limbaugh got to be here? I will go into a little bit more of his background as to what he was doing, but is this the importance that we should recognize Rush Limbaugh for?
I actually liked what Tucker Carlson was saying last night about the cancel culture and corporate canceling, and how, through him consistently beating them at their own game, he's been fighting it and he's been winning. And I think that the biggest takeaway from Rush is just that he used facts and truth to beat back the wolves at the door. And I don't think that anybody can take that away from it.
No. I think what happened is this. Common people found a voice through him. They could get on his show. Ken, any thoughts about the import of Rush Limbaugh?
Well, I love the fact that Rush Limbaugh used American entrepreneurialism to find a niche, exploit it, build it, profit from it, and create a legacy. I remember growing up, and the person that appealed to me when watching the Sunday morning television programs was William F. Buckley. And William F. Buckley spoke with such an articulate, intellectual prowess
Yeah, he did.
that while he made sense, he didn't make a splash upon the American people. And so when you look at the tenets of Russell Kirk in terms of what a conservative was, and you look at Ronald Reagan and his growth through the conservative movement from the 1960s on, you needed a media personality that could speak to me. Not just the William F. Buckley kid going to college kind of person, but the guy who was behind the lawnmower, the guy who was in the pickup truck, the guy who would sit at the bar and tell you that times have changed, things are not the same, and I just don't feel comfortable in this new America. He was able to personify just what those particular individuals were able to quest for, and yet he was able to stimulate intellectual prowess likened unto William F. Buckley. He did for the common man what William F. Buckley did for the conservative movement for the intellectual. And William F. Buckley is soon forgotten over the past years because his impact, while it helped in terms of the growth of think tanks on K Street in Washington, D.C., the impact of Rush Limbaugh were the guys like you and me. We would sit there, ordinary guys, and be able to speak, consequential, philosophical, political verb to individuals in a way that they could understand it finally. And so I didn't get introduced to Rush Limbaugh until the early 1990s, when I was sitting in a car with a fellow African-American insurance agent. And he said, Ken, I don't want to listen to any more of the R&B music. Can I just turn to this station at noon and listen? And I was like, well, maybe he's going to introduce me to some new music. And there it was, the voice of Rush Limbaugh saying that there was nothing wrong with you. You're right, and the rest of the world is wrong. And it was a message that I needed in my life at that time period, because as an African American living in the urban center, I always was off pace. I was that, that guy, that guy. I was that guy. But when I was in Rush's world, I wasn't that guy. I was part of the choir. I was part of the experience of life, the freedom and the liberty that we all pursue. And it generated in me the desire later on to reach urban America in a way that maybe even Rush couldn't do it. But to be inspired by him to take great steps is what we all sit down for. And I will tell you that of the two men, William F. Buckley in media and Rush Limbaugh, the legacy of Rush Limbaugh will be far greater, because people like you and me will be able to say, it was he who inspired me to get behind this microphone, to get over my fear of people, the fear that I'm going to be reputed, and just speak to the American people.
That's beautiful. In chat, Sergeant Booker said, one of the phrases that stands out most to him was rugged individualism. And all of these things resonate to different individuals for different reasons. In chat, Jack Alexander was saying that he had a very interesting episode. Jack, what was yours with regard to Rush Limbaugh?
Look, I had the pleasure of meeting Rush back in 2009 at the Talkers New Media Conference. It was the time he was receiving his second Freedom of Speech Award being awarded to him for the talk media industry. And we were on a panel together. Someone got cancelled out, and I think I was the only internet broadcaster at that particular convention, and most of the other people took me as a bit of a joke. Internet broadcasting, that's not real broadcasting, sort of thing. But I got invited up onto this panel. There was Rush, myself, Doug Steffen, Mark Levin, and Sean Hannity. So I am literally the odd one out, and we are discussing the way the media is talking about issues that were going on back then. Most notably, the confirmation of Sonia Sotomayor to the High Court. Isn't it funny how the High Court always seems to get, these massive levels of discussion? And here I am, I'm sitting amongst the gods of the industry, and I chastise them because in my mind, the way they were covering the issue, they were sounding like a one-trick pony. And I'd use their coverage of John McCain in the same way. John McCain had so many other screw-ups in his political and military career, but you're just concentrating on this one issue. And again, I'd use that same thing to chastise essentially my colleagues in the industry. And at the end of it, Rush comes up to me and says, "You are one tenacious son of a bitch, but you are right." And that, to this day, is one of the biggest compliments I think anyone in the industry has ever given me in my entire media career. I mean, we had talk radio like this in Australia maybe 10, 15 years beforehand. Rush perfected it, though. I grew up listening to a guy by the name of John Laws, who was the biggest syndicated talk show host in Australia. But he just didn't have the personality to grip people the way Rush did. And in Rush's address, when his acceptance speech, I mean, looking back now in hindsight, the man was an absolute psychic. He could see all of these issues that are going on in the media. He warned us about back in 2009, and he wasn't warning the conservative broadcasters. He was warning the liberal broadcasters that this was coming and that it was more than likely going to affect them first. That the social media platforms will turn on the media as soon as they don't follow the talking lines. This is 2009. The guy was a genius, and he knew how to keep people enthralled so they would stick around and listen to the toothpaste commercials.
Because you wanted to be there and listen to what he had to say. It was the only outlet that we had, basically, to all the leftist dogma, which is a little bit of a religion, that we had to process and listen to. Leftists believe the greatest enemy is the United States of America. We already know how that goes. We saw it with the leftist anarchist summer of hate in 2020. But what we are now, I submit, is in, or because of, in great part, Rush Limbaugh. Not in a negative fashion, but in a positive fashion. Timing is everything. Yeah, he had some great timing. He went through a lot of radio stations. But still in our industry, and I consider myself part of the industry because here I am and all of you are there too, a lot of people are flashes in the pan and they're there for a year, maybe 2 or 3, and then they're gone. Anybody remember Tom Likas? I used to enjoy Tom Likas. Gone. Jeff Metcalf. Gone. I could go on. Probably with lots of people in your areas that were really good, and then all of a sudden they're gone. They're just gone. Let me throw this out to everybody here. I believe that Rush Limbaugh was really important in 2 critical areas. Number 1 was the format of radio itself. Using radio as an effective communications tool, which could all at once, and this is what I think he was a master of, he could simultaneously, he could inform, entertain, and poke fun. And the second critical area that I think he's responsible for enabling is Republicans and conservatives finding their own voice, and once found, using that voice to advance conservative thought and agendas. So, to the three that are here, Jack, Ken, Jeremy, any thoughts about what you think might have been the biggest pluses, the biggest things that Limbaugh gave us in radio and as conservatives?
In my opinion, I believe that the two things that Rush did for the conservative movement was, number one, to legitimize it, and number two, make it profitable.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You're dealing with AM stations. Now, I loved AM stations for news and information, but they were not what I would listen to on a daily basis. I was listening to the FM stations, and I was listening to music and things of that nature. Rush Limbaugh made it a habit for people to tune out music for a few hours and just listen to him talking for free. And then he said, I have the statistics and the data to prove that I'm not just blowing, smoke up your skirt. I'm bringing in 30 million people every single day to listen to me. I got the stats. I can prove it. And this is at a time period when we were not being censored by Facebook, and statistics were not being manipulated by the Google algorithms.
Right.
He proved that our voices were just as legitimate as all of the leftist media out there. And trust me, leftist media is maybe 4 or 5 times larger than conservative media. And he made us profitable. Now we can go to people and say, we got 50 to 100,000 people listening to us on every single night. You need to invest in us. Those are the two things that I think of when I think of Rush Limbaugh.
Jeremy or Jack?
There's so much with Rush. I think that I look at Rush from a little bit of a different perspective. I think that he showed us, he was far from being a perfect man, far from it.
Yes.
Yeah. And he would always own everything he did. Like, I remember when Brett Favre came out and talked about his painkiller use. Well, then he came out and he talked to people about it, and he said, this is a problem I have. And through his flaws, he made himself more available to the American people. Like, I've been there. I've felt that. I know that. And even though he was imperfect, he strived for perfection. And I think that's something that he taught me, and I think that he taught that not just to talk radio hosts, but to people in their living rooms every single day.
I would agree. He owned it. You knew what he was doing. He told you because he was smart enough and sufficiently facile of mind to realize that the cover-up is always worse than the actual act itself. Just the realization of that.
He was also inspirational to other people in the industry as well. And it didn't matter what side of politics he was on. Again, going back to that acceptance speech, he said, he was saying, I'm not going to be around here forever. I think maybe that then he knew that, we knew his health wasn't good back then. But at some stage, someone in this room, he said, is going to replace me. Don't be like me. Be yourself, but do this with a passion.
That's the key.
And he'd made the point that too many people out there were trying to be him. And they were failing because, let's face it, the man was unique. You didn't have to like everything he said. To me, Donald Trump and Rush Limbaugh were cut not with the same pattern, but maybe from the same roll of cloth. Because they found ways to be completely unique and be successful at it. And yet, look, there are things that Russians put on air that I thought were absolutely stupid. There was a thing about female contraception that he really screwed up. I thought it was absolutely silly that he didn't talk to one of his female staffers about how female contraception actually works. But he really balls that up. But the next day he was back and said, yeah, I screwed that up. Anyway, moving on. But to turn around and inspire people to say, look, what are you going to do to help this industry when I'm gone? Because I think the biggest legacy Rush Limbaugh is going to have on the spoken media genre is that he made, especially talk radio, profitable when all other forms of radio were losing money hand over fist. When you look at a lot of the clusters that are out there, their music stations are not making money because they're playing the same 40 songs to death.
See, you make an excellent point on that, Jack. I think it could be said that Rush Limbaugh revitalized all of AM radio, which it was, at the time, drying up, courtesy of the big FM radio challenge at the time. AM radio, like you point out, was dying. I think Limbaugh single-handedly brought it back during, this is what I consider amazing, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. During the time that might be considered the proverbial, prototypical worst of times for conservatives, as President Clinton was in office in 1992. Oh my God, how do you get to be popular when the opposing party is in office? And despite that, his listenership exploded. Further, there might not have been House control in 1993, as Speaker Gingrich confirms. This was an astounding feat in 1992. Conservatives weren't in office. AM radio was moribund.
And the whole Air America thing, that was the only real opportunity back then. And from what I'd heard, Nancy Pelosi's husband was a major investment in Air America. Oh. And when that went under, a lot of the family fortune went with it. Oh. So consequently, when Barack Obama came in, Nancy Pelosi started talking about bringing back things like the fairness doctrine or diversity officers at talk radio stations. And, that it really does show the fear that the left has for one single voice. And now with all of the piss and vinegar that's coming out of the left, rest in piss and all this sort of stuff that I've seen some people put post about Rush's passing, thank God he's gone. These people need to really fear, because now that Rush is gone, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of lesser-known voices like mine, and Jeremy and Ken, and even you if you want to stick around, BZ, who now have the opportunity to get into the markets that were so heavily dominated. And if you think Rush was bad, now, I like to think that I make Rush Limbaugh look like a trip over my tongue.
Right.
I make Rush Limbaugh look like a limp-wristed liberal when it comes to how conservative I think I am. I mean, I was filling in at a station in Houston, back shortly after this whole that I'd met Rush, and I had a guy ring up and call me the illegitimate love child of Rush Limbaugh and Steve Irwin.
Hey, that's actually some funny shit right there. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. I mean, the guy was trying to offend me. Making it, I'm a gay love child sort of thing, and send me off. And I turned around and said, mate, that was probably one of the greatest compliments you could have ever given me, because both of those might not agree with everything they say and everything they do, but they are passionate about what they believe and getting that information out. And if that's the worst insult you've got, man, that is the best compliment I've had all day. And with that, we had to hit the red button, obviously, because, it was F-bombs and insults galore.
But it was beautiful.
I want to say here that the two men that we should privately look at for our futures are Rush Limbaugh and Roger Ailes. Both men are past, but both men recognize that there is an America out there that's not New York, it's not San Francisco, it's not LA, it's not Chicago, it's not Atlanta. There is a America out there that's not being taken care of. No one's shepherding that particular America. And now while Rush is gone and the EIB network will begin to slow, you will have the opportunity to replace Rush with all these great voices that you're listening to tonight and many others. But as well, I want to say that they were the forerunners in their particular realm of industry. Rush in terms of radio, Roger Ailes in terms of television. But there's a brand new frontier out there that we need to take advantage of holistically, and that is internet television. We have got to take the complete and total reins of control over internet television, make it the place of AM radio for Rush, make it the place of cable news for Roger Ailes. We have to make ownership of that. We have to stake ourselves there, because when we do, it becomes the actual fortification against much of what the left really wants to do. Nothing frustrates Zuckerberg and Google and Dorsey as much as knowing that there is a BZ out there over the internet reaching not only people in America or on cable networks, but reaching the entire world with liberty, freedom, and justice for all. But you are much more important than a conversation between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping, literally, because you get to talk to people every single day exactly where they are, and they can connect with you. I once told a pastor who was bragging that the entire community that he lived in was his congregation. And I asked him, how many people live in your community? He said, about 10 to 15,000 people. They're all a member of my church. And I said, you know what? Before my very first commercial, I speak to 50,000 people every single day. You speak to them only once a day. I have more power and influence than you ever will have. That is the actual measure that we must take in fighting back against the left and the radical Marxists that basically make being on cable and on radio a more difficult experience for people to enjoy.
Basically what you're saying, if I'm getting it correct, Ken McClinton, is that conservatives now need to be absolutely comprehensive, enable and embrace every bit of technology that we can. Or am I way far off that?
No, you're not. Listen, there will be replacements in cable, but cable will die. There will be replacements in terms of AM and FM, but they too will pass on. There are new people coming along, and what they are adapting to is new technology, new industries, new ways of communicating with one another. So while we laud ourselves over control of those things that are dying, we need to laud ourselves over those things that are rebirthing and coming alive again. We need to be as comprehensive and as involved in these industries as we possibly can be, not boycotting and shutting down. Yeah, you close your account on Facebook, but they got 10 billion others. So what? You need to be just as important into those industries of social media as they really don't want you to be. And trust me, you are.
Let me throw a couple of other aspects out here, sort of bullet points, I guess. I think Rush Limbaugh was basically what you would call an eternal optimist. Every once in a while, you'd see something pop up to the surface, but it was quickly pushed down again. He showed us overall that conservatives, in my opinion, I believe this is absolutely true, are a lot more optimistic. Conservatives are a hell of a lot more happy. More importantly, they are oriented towards creativity and building. On the other hand, he emphasized that contrast, so it became really, really obvious to me that leftists are negative, unhappy, and they focus on destruction. I say leftists destroy everything they damn touch. He emphasized America is fundamentally decent. It's good, it's caring, and it's charitable. Leftists aren't charitable, period. He shared some characteristics with President Trump. And insofar as he was the initial outsider, but he became a trendsetter who spoke his mind and he was attacked for it. I remember he said, and it's in one of his commercials, some of the promos, he said, simply get out of their way of the American people. Get out of their way and let them triumph. The other thing that I thought was really cool about Rush Limbaugh is that he didn't have any college. He went to college and he didn't finish. He was self-taught. He failed an assload of times, and he kept going, and he persevered, and he got better and more facile and more knowledgeable with every job. I think he paved the way for Fox News. They went live in October of '96. He paved the way for President Trump. I guess maybe I could summarize everything, and then I want to hear what you guys think. To me, he said this, and I think he nailed it. He said, all I did was one thing. I simply validated what everybody already felt. That's brilliance. It's simple. It's brilliant.
Well, I think the power that Limbaugh had was out of this world. I was not a everyday Limbaugh listener, but I listened to him as much as I could. I also listened to Michael Savage.
Oh, God.
And Limbaugh in my life had so much power. One show I was listening to Savage, and he was talking about how the other crybaby was talking about his cancer. And the truth is I never listened to Michael Savage, not 1 minute ever after that. That's the power that he had. Now what's really bad right now is we have a vacuum of leadership when it comes to pro-American ideals, because I truly believe that Limbaugh was a pro-American idealist.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how we're going to solve that problem, because I don't know who the leadership is. I mean, Dan Bongino, yes, but Dan Bongino, doesn't have, if you ask the lefties, they say that Limbaugh had 11 million listeners a week. Almost like the number of illegals here. If you ask the super right, they say, he had 115 million. The real number is somewhere around 45 to 58 million listeners per week. Who's going to fill that void, and where is the leadership going to come from now?
Well, that's a really good question, but one thing we absolutely know, absolutely, nature abhors a vacuum.
The answer to that,
nature abhors a vacuum.
The answer to that, Jeremy, is simple. It's us. We have to supply the leadership now. And Ken's, I've been talking about internet TV for a long time now, as you and I have spoken about off air. But it's now up to those of us to continue on. I mean, to me, Rush was one of four hosts that taught me how to express as an immigrant my love for America. I put Rush, put these four people together as mentors in my talk radio career. Rush Limbaugh's at the top. Roger Hedgecock, again, somebody else that I'm proud to call a friend, as is Jim Sumter. Again, these two guys, none of these guys are now on air anymore. Rush was the last of them on air. And, sadly, the late Jerry Doyle. I mean, all of these men made selling America, the classic American dream and patriotism as the greatest thing out there. Did they shy away from, the problems that are in America, racism, it's parts of its history, the growing liberalism? No, they didn't. But each of them, and Rush most of all, really did set the stage and a solid foundation for those of us who are still doing it to build on that legacy and be that next generation of conservative media leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
I just want to say here that the vacuum that's been created with the absence of Rush Limbaugh is exacerbated, in my community by the absence of Herman Cain, who didn't like me, and Walter Williams, who loved me. Literally, I don't have time to ask that question. I only have time to be the answer. And when I say these things over the air, sometimes it comes across as, purely arrogant or conceit, and it's not. It's the simplicity of the solution at hand. God has given us a media by which we can either cower from the role and responsibility that Rush Limbaugh laid out for us many years ago, or we can take the helm and fight victoriously with the battle plan that he implemented with his own career. That we be honest, no matter what, with our personal lives and with our professional lives, that we be profitable, that we always make certain that our fellow men value our voices, that we legitimize the conservative movement, that Russell Kirk wasn't wrong in the 1950s when he put together the 10 principles, that we put forth our faith unashamedly, and that we denounce those that detract from it. And that lastly, we do everything that we can, because a lot of what's been overlooked tonight is his efforts to support children, his donations to St. Jude that were done privately without and anonymously, his production of a number of books, children books about American history.
I'd forgotten about that.
We must protect our children.
Yes.
We must go after our children with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our strength, because you know who's coming for them? The Marxists and the pedophiles are coming for them. We must do what's necessary to keep them from out of hurt, harm, and danger. Rush Limbaugh wouldn't want us to cower now.
And isn't it funny that the things that people were accusing us of in terms of being a conspiracist, we're discovering now they meant that crap all along. I pulled something out of the archives that I think you guys would be interested in. Now, Limbaugh dropped out of college in 1971, and he was fired from 4 radio stations. Then he got involved in sales with Kansas City Royals in 1979, and he went back to radio in 1983. He was fired after a year that place, and 2 weeks later, he got hired by KFBK. KGO in San Francisco turned him down. Flat. Nope, not going to hire you. I met Morton Downey Jr. at KFBK. Morton Downey Jr., as I've written and said before, I'm sorry, he's passed away. Morton Downey Jr. was a dick. And I get to say that. It's just the way it was. I found a Rush Limbaugh air check from 1974 at station KQV in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
14K, Terry Jackson, Seasons in the Sun, Jeff Christie in Pittsburgh, serving humanity at 9:48.
Okay, he wasn't Rush Limbaugh, he was Jeff Christie.
Bangler production. Also appearing with Shana Na and opening the show will be Billy Cook's Rainbows and Gypsies. See the exciting Day of the Dolphin, rated PG, now showing at the Ardmore Drive-In, Bellevue, Bethel Cinema, Camp Horn Drive-In, Carnegie Cinema, and Cinema World. Day of the Dolphin also showing at the Hampton Plaza, McKee Cinema, Oaks, Penn Hills, Regent, and Rockton Theaters. See Day of the Dolphin now at the Sewickley, South Hills, South Park Drive-In, South Hills Drive-In, and Sunset View Drive-In. I certainly hope you people are writing all of this down. Don't miss a Day of the Dolphin. It is now showing at a theater or drive-in near you.
14K. A diamond has locations.
14K. Music Radio 14K. Hey, sweetheart, don't you worry.
God, I remember this.
Stevie Wonder, come on. Watch this out. 14K, don't you worry about this. Stevie the Boy Wonder. Real name is Steveland Morris. It's 2 words, Steveland Morris. There's a shock when I found that out. Jeff Christie at 9:54.
And that was Rush Limbaugh as Jeff Christie. If you ever worked AM radio in the 60s or the 70s, you had an intro on each song. You were expected to talk over the intro of each song. Each 45 had an intro time. And if you were too long, you were fired. If you didn't talk over the intro, you were fired. If you didn't segue properly, you were fired. If you looked at the station manager upside down, left or right, you were fired. Because radio is one of the most backbiting, backstabbing industries that you can ever be on.
Amen.
But then, and you guys know, Jack, Ken, Jeremy, we've all talked about it. You don't have enough fingers on each hand for all the assholes in your lives that have stabbed you. Mostly in the back, some let you see it coming from the front, but mostly in the back. And then, at the whim of the sale of a station or the program director didn't like you, all of a sudden they went to the 24-hour Tibetan bell ringing channel and boop, your ass was gone. Your ass was gone. But then the other thing that I think that was very influential in this was timing is a lot of this stuff. Limbaugh's first show on KFBK was on October 14th, back in 1984. That was kind of an ominous year anyway, 1984. But it was the repeal of the Fairness Doctrine, which required stations before that to provide free airtime. And this is, folks, this is what leftists want in return. And this is what it did. It required stations provide free airtime for responses to any controversial opinions that were broadcast. And that was in effect until the FCC nixed it on August 5th, 1987. So that meant stations could broadcast editorial commentary without having to present opposing views. Leftists want that back. That was the end of government-mandated fairness. Fairness. Air quotes. Translated, equity, guaranteed equal outcomes. That's what they're going to want out of radio now. And TV, guaranteed equal outcomes. Not guaranteed opportunity. That crap can go to hell. Like I said, Limbaugh failed a bunch of times. KGO in San Francisco, huge radio station, didn't want to have anything to do with him. So he got syndicated in 1988. He left KFBK. He went to WABC in New York. That was the big time. And he created millions and millions of listeners per year. I want to play this for you guys. This is everybody that's listened to Rush is going to remember this. It's all going to come cascading back to you. This was a 1993, this was an April 29th, 1993, rebroadcast of Rush Limbaugh on KFBK. By the way, this also, as Rush notes, this was Bill Clinton's 100th day in office.
69 degrees in Sacramento, and Rush Limbaugh overnight is pre-recorded on KFBK.
Never forgot the intro.
To you conversationalists all across the fruited plain. We opened the program today with a huge smile. I can't tell you when I have felt so up. Don't know why specifically, just things are rolling. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. otherwise known as the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies, the Doctor of Democracy, makes another house call.
This is a special edition of the Rush Limbaugh program, America Held Hostage. And now, from our studios in New York City, here is Rush Limbaugh.
Thank you, John Donovan. It is day 100 of the raw deal. Day 100 of the Clinton administration. Day 100, the honeymoon over.
And that's how it went from there. We'll talk about this just briefly. And do you guys remember when back in 2003, he lasted, I think, maybe, 2 weeks as an ESPN commentator then? And do you remember what allegedly got him fired from ESPN? The comment?
No, what got him fired?
We're talking 2003 from ESPN and fired. Yep. He was talking about Donovan McNabb. What he said was this. He said, and I'm mentioning this because of a phrase, and Ken and Jeremy and Jack.
I remember it now.
I remember it. You have already said that he was prescient. He was prescient in a number of ways that we didn't realize then, but in retrospect, we look back. Yeah, he was. Here's another one. This is a quote. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's that good from a get-go. He's talking about Donovan McNabb. He said, I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. Social justice. Social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. Duh. They're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. Okay. He said, I think there's a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of his team that he really didn't deserve. The defense carried this team. And that's what got him fired from ESPN in 2003.
Wow.
That's what got him removed.
I remember that.
And
he was exactly right, because Donovan McNabb wasn't that good, and the team was propping that quarterback up. And you know what? I think they were looking for a reason to fire him, to be honest with you.
That could very well be true. Let me go back to this a little bit, because you guys had mentioned this earlier. And by the way, for those of you who just tuned in and wondering, what the hell is this? Who the hell is this? I'm BZ. I'm the bloviating Zeppelin. This is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Tonight we're talking to Jeremy Hansen from Unleashed Jeremy Hansen. We're talking to Ken McClinton from TECN TV and Jack Alexander from the Jack Alexander Experiment. Rush fessed up. The radio talk show host, he said, if you remember, he revealed on the air that he was addicted to painkillers. And that was again in 2003, a little bit after that little tete-a-tete about Donovan McNabb. What I didn't know is, evidently following spine surgery, he said the surgery was unsuccessful. I continued to have severe pain in my lower back and also in my neck due to herniated discs. I'm still experiencing that pain. So in April of 2006, Limbaugh turns himself into the authorities. They issued a warrant, the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office, and he was arrested on a single charge of prescription fraud. His record was expunged. But here's the thing that I want you guys to talk about. And this is when all of you individually have said that what you need to succeed in radio is perseverance. And Jeremy, you and I talked about this, and I'm going to mention a particular individual that I know that you're going to relate to here in just a moment. Imagine being a radio broadcaster and finding out in 2001 that you are suffering from rapid onset hearing loss as a result of this rare condition called autoimmune inner ear disease, AIED. So people were asking, okay, we know that he was addicted to a common painkiller. People were asking, could that have contributed to Rush Limbaugh's well-known hearing loss? So he had, and he said, an addiction to Vicodin and also to OxyContin. And people were wondering, okay, is this what's responsible for his deafness about 2 years ago? So they apparently have cases of Vicodin addicts who have become deaf. And Limbaugh got cochlear implants not too long after that, which I find very interesting. You're in radio. Your job revolves around your ears. He told people that he was 100% deaf in his left ear and 80% deaf in his right ear. So he got this cochlear implant in his left ear to try to restore his hearing. So he said in January 2002, way back then, that he could actually hear his own radio show for the first time in nearly 4 months via a medical marvel. Now, do you guys remember this? Because I do. Until then, when he couldn't hear, he still did a show. He had a teleprompter and his staff's assistants to try to understand what the callers were saying. I remember hearing that and hearing the time lag between when a caller would ask a question. He was still taking callers between the time that a caller asked a question and he replied. Jeremy knows where I'm going right now with this. This is just like the dude that I turned Jeremy on to about 2 weeks ago. This guy was in San Francisco in the 70s. Dr. Donald D. Rose at KFRC in San Francisco. What happened is Rose suffered 3 decades of debilitating pain from all sorts of medical problems. In 1972, okay, this guy, Dr. Don Rose, he was making $350,000 a year in 1974 cash. In 1972, he goes through heart surgery. They screw that up. That causes chronic knee infections that required 11 operations and led to his losing his kneecap. He broadcast his daily show flat on his back from home in a hospital bed for months. In 1984, he had a fall, and it made the knee problems worse. He had the damaged leg amputated in 1984. Perseverance, dogged determination, doing what you love with passion. Passion.
Wow.
Each one of you guys have that here right now. Or if you didn't, I wouldn't have you on the show. It's as simple as that. It's risk, it's reward, it's work. You know, it's like, now I'm getting to a point where I want to ask you guys something. Rush Limbaugh's gig was, he did 3 hours of talk radio with commercial breaks for 33 years. In that amount of time, he basically had no guests except for he would have like the president on or a VP or something like that. 0 guests to take the time and weight from your shoulders, because a lot of radio people that are talkers, I mean, when somebody's talking to you and you got a guest, that kind of relieves a little bit of pressure from you to make sense. So,
absolutely,
what Rush Limbaugh did and what he had was this absolutely endless, cogent, insightful, logical narrative. Endless, day after day, week after week, year after year. How do you keep quality like that up? And at the same time, he made it seem like, and this is what you guys all realize, he made it effortless. It was smooth. It was seamless. And he did what I believe in. Some of you may, some of you may not. But I know I gotta do this or I'm screwed. He believed in show prep. Joe Concha just had an article, who's a media reviewer guy. Joe Concha in The Hill yesterday said, some broadcasters can get away with no show prep, not Rush. the man was notorious for prepping. He was also exceptional at effortlessly weaving narratives. More importantly, he made you, this is a key, he made you look at the same story everybody else was talking about from an angle that you hadn't considered. And his secret, Concha wrote, was the old military rule. The more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in war. So his gig was show prep. Now, for all of you guys, I want to hear, do you do show prep? And if so, for each show, how much?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll go first.
Go first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've got to do show prep in this. Without it, I mean, you might touch on a few talking points, and then you're lost with what to say, unless you've got guests to fall back on. You know, that's what I think it was a mark of a good talk host. Those guys that did the best show prep had the least number of guests to come in and screw up the show. I think we've all. I think we've all had guests that we've had on and wondered, why the hell are we talking to this person?
I've made terrible mistakes.
Hey, we've all had terrible guests. We've all had, by the guys that everyone that I mentioned previously, they very rarely, if at all, had guests or callers, for that matter. Jim Sumter never had guests because they came on once, tried to sabotage his show, and never came back on again. And, well, the callers, you often had a lot of saboteurs in the callers, so he decided, fine, we'll cut the callers and the guests out of it, and I will just hit you with military intelligence style prep, and I will give you the narrative as I see it. And Rush was very much in the same boat.
Okay, Ken. Okay, and this is what I find is very interesting. Jack, you do a show every day when you're feeling better. Ken, you do a show every day. I heard from Jack. Ken, what kind of show prep do you do for your show every day?
I'm forced to do at least 8 to 10 hours of research every single day. And I do have guests that come on my program. And I realized a long time ago, I've been doing this for 10 years, the Exceptional Conservative Show. I realized that the objective when you have a guest on is to make your guests better than they appear.
Yeah.
Which requires you to be more up to date. And when people listen to you ask a question, you're normally not going to ask a dry question. You have to give the research that you got in your question to stimulate the intellectual response back from the actual guest. So I've had lots of guests on my program, but there are 3 components to the research, and this is what I find. This is how I know that people are interested in my show. Number 1 is my own personal drive, and I'm a very ambitious individual, so I stay up about 20 hours out of the day. I sleep for about 4 hours a day. So I'm usually doing research and reading and things of that particular nature. But a lot of my research is sent to me by other people. When they find out that you use a piece of their information in one show, all of a sudden they start sending you stuff on a daily basis. And I have an executive producer, Bonnie Williams, who sends me stuff nearly 8 to 10 hours out of the day. I have an intern, Ms. Intern, who sends me stuff 8 to 10 hours out of the day. So not only am I doing my own research, I'm using the research that they send me. And then my audience sends me information, which I have to go through and review. So I'm constantly being updated with the times, per se, which is why in the introduction of tonight's show, it was very easy to move from one topic to the other, with precision, in terms of Texas, in terms of China, in terms of Biden. And the whole idea in all of this prep is actually to make your audience comfortable with being as smart as they are, because your audience is much smarter than you on every given day, and they just want to be comfortable when they go to the water cooler that they're able to parse facts and not fiction. So that's the reason why I do such a large amount of research every single day on my programs.
So you're working every day, Ken. I know that for a fact. And I know you're working on the weekends. Yeah. It's just because I know that of you and your nature. And you get about 4 hours. Dude, that's Trump sleep right there. You have TS. If I haven't told you this before, you apparently have TS, Trump sleep. You're like a baby who wakes up every 4 hours, minus the crying. Except you're up for 20 hours straight. I don't know how you do it.
Ask my wife. I probably do cry. I probably do.
Jeremy Hansen, you do a show every day, and now you're doing 2 shows every day. You are starting a morning show, which began this week on Monday. It's an hour a day, early in the morning, and then you also do an afternoon. Actually, somebody's getting a phone call. And you do an afternoon or an evening show at 5 p.m. your time. So, and you've got a big family, and you're at home. How much show prep can you or do you do for each of your shows? Now, you're 1 in the morning. You're much more off the cuff. I get that, but you also have very specific topics that you discuss in your evening show. So how do you work that out, Jeremy Hansen?
Okay, so this is the way this works. I've got 2 notebooks, one in my office for Unleash Jeremy Hansen, and then I have another notebook that sits on the table for the morning show. And it's literally an all-day thing. Actually, the wife gets mad at me for it because I'm like, you should just be married to your phone, because I'm constantly looking stuff up. I literally got caught up early in my career where I took a story from a friend, and they're like, it's true. And then I found out it wasn't, and I felt really stupid. So I live by this ideology that proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. And, if you study things and you look at things, it doesn't matter which angle people come at you with, and you don't have to worry about covering your tracks because you're giving them truth and knowledge behind that truth. And I think there's something there. You asked earlier if anybody or any death ever affected us. Is it still okay for us to answer that?
Of course.
Okay, so this is actually related to Rush Limbaugh. And I remember Rush Limbaugh taking on or talking about this little girl named Rowan Ford. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Do you remember that?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so there was this little girl missing in Missouri, and that's where he was from.
And that's where you are.
That's where I am, correct. And he's legendary proportions around here still. I mean, even above the rest of the world. I mean, I saw Rush Limbaugh once at a gas station. That's how important he is here. But anyways, I'm in Wisconsin at that time, and I'm listening. I already heard about Rowan Ford, and nobody was talking about Rowan Ford. Nobody. She was 9 years old. She just had a crappy life, and blah blah blah. Anyways, he was on the forefront of, hey, let's find this girl. Well, a couple weeks later, they ended up finding her, and they found out that the stepfather and his best friend raped her, tortured her, murdered her, and then threw her in a hole on their property. And I remember the whole court process, and every once in a while, Rush would bring it up. And it got to the point in court where they were talking about, well, should we give this guy the death penalty because, you know, he was high on meth and he didn't know what he was doing. And I remember Rush going off on this, you know how Rush occasionally would go off on a tangent where you could tell that he was really pissed. You could feel the emotion in him. And he did that with this case. And I remember listening to other radio programs talk about with how much power Rush Limbaugh had if they were going to be able to throw it out of court because he may not get a fair trial because of what Rush Limbaugh said. What do you think of that? I mean, that's power.
That is. And the interesting point, obviously, I didn't know. I just met him very briefly. So I'm not going to take advantage of any of that kind of stuff. But people knew him. The thing that I'm discovering in the past day and a half about Rush Limbaugh is that you'd think that with the amount of seniority and the big bucks and the dollars and whatnot that Rush Limbaugh had, and he worked for all of it and paid a price, as Ken pointed out. It's okay to make money from this. You would think that Rush would be, you know, like your basic ego shock missile. But when they said they met him, they were taken aback. And I remember this quote from yesterday. They were taken aback by how quiet he was. And almost, some people said he was kind of shy. And I distinctly remember he said, one of his quotes was, "I socially distanced before it was fashionable." and well, that's him. That's Rush Limbaugh.
Is it funny to you guys? I mean, all of you guys know how hard it is to get into the Radio Hall of Fame. And to know that he was, I think it was 1990 or maybe 92, he was put into the Radio Hall of Fame and then continued to have a 30-year career after he was put into the Hall of Fame. How many people does that happen to?
Well, yeah, usually what happens is the reverse or posthumously, one of those. See, and the other thing that I think bespeaks volumes about Rush Limbaugh is Limbaugh's not you mentioned Michael Savage before. He's not a Michael Savage. Right. Now, I have said, I think Savage has got a great shtick with borders, language, and culture. That resonates. I get that. He's got a good message. But in my opinion, he is one of the harshest and worst of messengers imaginable. He goes through radio personnel. I don't listen to him anymore. I couldn't even tell you if he's on the air. But I know for a fact, because I've spoken to other people who have been one for about 35 seconds, he goes through producers like most people change underwear because he treats everybody he encounters like crap, not Rush. You guys remember his first dude, Kit Carson? That guy was around for years. He passed from cancer at 58 in 2015. And very few people know this guy, who is also brilliant and kind. His producer of many years called Bo Snerdley. Well, Bo Snerdley isn't a Bo Snerdley, of course. He's really a gracious dude named James Golden. He's a black Republican. He's been Rush's call screener, his producer, his engineer since about 1992. Beginning, of all things, with Rush's TV show. It's just, people tell you about Rush, they've got nothing to lose, and especially not now. And I think that, again, as I indicated, that speaks volumes about Rush Limbaugh and the kind of personality that he was. And, yeah, he made the big bucks, but he kept on keeping on because this was his passion. It was his passion.
I feel with some of his quotes, they're taken out of context. Like my absolute favorite quote from Rush Limbaugh, his talent's so good, it was borrowed from the gods. And, you know, the thing is in our position, I know other people out there, they think, and they look at that and they're like, what an egomaniac and blah, 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 blah. But I'm telling you something, with all the backstabbing snake sons of bitches in this industry, if you don't promote yourself, nobody's promoting you. Yeah. And I love that line from Limbaugh.
Yeah. with talent on loan from God, and with half my brain tied behind my back.
Behind my back. I must say here that, and I adore Rush Limbaugh. I truly do. He is the standard by which we all attest to. But there is a coming tide coming in the sense of radio and media. You're talking about Lou Dobbs that was just fired from Fox.
Jeremy
He was born in 1945. Michael Medvedev, 1948. Dennis Prager, 1948. Bill O'Reilly, 1949. Larry Elder, 1952. Charles Sykes, 1954. Hugh Hewitt, 1956. There is an institutional wealth that we may lose over the next few years. And not saying that because you're old that you're going to die. It's just simply because you're human, you're going to die, but you're more likely to die if you're older. We literally are going to lose a great deal of institutional wealth. And it, for us, responsibly to preserve that somehow, use that to motivate us into a new eon by which we fortify our conservative values and beliefs, and that we are able to pierce the static of FM and AM and cable and other forms of media, so that our young people are able to hear that because you are born black does not excuse you from the responsibilities and duties and accountabilities of being a man, that you're judged by the content of your character and not the color of your skin, that your responsibility is to actually preserve the republic and not tear it down so that China may invade and Russia may take over. We have to give our children something, and it has been hoisted upon our shoulders this particular evening, and I thank you for allowing me to be in this particular hall of great fame amongst these men that spread the good news of conservatism to the world. We must pioneer, and we must preserve the republic, and we must fight even more boldly now since Russia's gone, and that there's a institutional wealth that we will lose in the coming years as well.
Well, there's a huge vacuum created by Rush. Nature abhors a vacuum, and it will be filled. And as you point out, Ken, there are going to be a lot of conservative talkers leaving. So I think that begs two immediate questions. The first is, no one will ever be Rush Limbaugh, and if you're smart, you'll never try to be Rush Limbaugh. I can't be Ken for obvious reasons, but I can't do a Ken show. Ken does Ken. I can't try to be Jack because I'm not Jack. I can't do a Jack show. And I can't be Jeremy because I don't do a Jeremy show. We're all different. That said, who may be waiting in the wings to be the new Rush Limbaugh? Not to steal his shtick, not to be him, but to be of a similar import and weight and significance.
I've got two names that come to mind. One is Matt Locke, and he's been all over the board. He's kind of done the thing that goes around like Rush did. He fills in everywhere. He's on digital radio. He's doing podcasting. And, I mean, I'm telling you, that guy probably can read verbatim most of the shows that he did. The other guy, I think, is more obvious, and I think it's Dan Bongino.
Okay, I knew that you were going to say that, but I hate to put the turd in the punch bowl. Cross your fingers, everybody listening. Dan Bongino has cancer, and some points have come back, he announced today. I would love to see Dan Bongino survive. You can look at him and you can tell, as opposed to the Dan Bongino of 2 or 3 months ago, this isn't the same guy. I know what that's like. I do that. I send your prayers, everybody, to Dan Bongino. He needs it right now.
Yes.
He could be the person to fill that vacuum. Not the steps, because you don't want another Rush Limbaugh, but you do want someone to pick up the mantle of conservatism, distinctly different, I must say this, distinctly different from Republicans. Conservatism. Distinctly different from Republicans. Republicans, there isn't a puddle of piss worth of difference between them anymore, between the Democrats and the Republicans themselves, who are going out of their way to shoot themselves in the head and the foot. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. But this is what makes... We need somebody with the ability to step up and say this.
Let me tell you who we conservatives are. We love people. When we look out over the United States of America, when we are anywhere, when we see a group of people such as this or anywhere, we see Americans, we see human beings. We don't see groups, we don't see victims, we don't see people we want to exploit. What we see is potential. We do not look out across the country and see the average American, the person that makes this country work. We do not see that person with contempt. We don't think that person doesn't have what it takes. We believe that person can be the best he or she wants to be if certain things are just removed from their path, like onerous taxes, regulations, and too much government. We love and revere our founding documents, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. We believe that the preamble of the Constitution contains an inarguable truth, that we are all endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, those of you watching at home may wonder why this is being applauded. We conservatives think all three are under assault.
And that's back at CPAC in 2009. It's 2021. It's still here. It hasn't been solved. Can we find another conservative to speak like that and to hold those values? Are they there? Do we have them?
Well, there's a commercial that plays, especially during Black History Month, on the Black channel, which there are none, but BET likes to claim it is. And there's a voice that comes out of nowhere that basically states who's going to take physics, who's going to take algebra, who's going to take trigonometry, who's going to take all of this. And it sounds very scary and very disdaining. And yet, a little boy rises up and says, I'll do it. I want to tell America and the world, I'll do it. I'll be that person. I don't have a problem being that person. It's not arrogance. It's not conceit by which I state this. It's the way I live. It is my life. Conservatism is a way of life. And you live it, you breathe it, you die a conservative.
And quite frankly, I believe the mark that I'm trying to make in urban America and also in the conservative movement is to move us away from the comfort zone of radio and television, and at least the patterns that we have known, and to move into a new venture, a new eon. And I don't mind the arrows being slung at me, because when you mention the death of a child, or at least a death that meant a lot to a person, I lost my daughter 6 years ago. And she was studying at Syracuse University at Newhouse, one of the top journalism schools in the world. And she was about to make it, into the Washington Post or the Chicago Times or whatever, and she was getting off a bus to cross the street. And after covering a story on Capitol Hill, and she was held by one gang member and shot by another point blank into her heart.
In D.C.
And she died right there on the street.
And
so I lost the hope of her future, but I didn't lose the hope of the God that she serves. And so I'll stand up and I'll be that one. And I don't mind people saying the worst of things about me standing up and saying that. But if you really want the vacuum to be turned off, you are the one who has the ability to turn the switch on and off. Fill the vacuum, do your best. Maybe they will give you the same accolades one night on BZ's show 20 years from now. Maybe they won't. But all that you did was to make certain that this republic stood and that the fence that surrounds the U.S. Capitol gets torn down and that America is free again.
Hear, hear. Jeremy Hansen, do we have anybody waiting in the wings that you're thinking of besides Dan Bongino and or Jack?
What he just said was pretty inspiring, and I have been carrying the torch for what I believe, and I believe that conservatism has gotten twisted down the road, and for me, being pro-American and getting back into the fight of culture and guiding our young people so they actually have something in the future, that is my goal. However, I'm also a realist. And if we don't start pulling people together in all types, because there's not one person that's going to fill those shoes. I don't even know if there can be two or three that are going to fill those shoes. I think it's going to be a collective effort from Gorka, Bongino. I don't really trust the guys on Fox News.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. So my hope kind of lies where Ken is talking about, where, you know what, cable is going down, FM, AM, they're all going down, and literally the hope is on the internet some way, shape, or form. And hopefully we can enrich ourselves with culture, sports, and everything that young people pay attention to, and bring this pro-American message, this pro-God message back into the arena where we actually have a fighting chance. And that's, I really don't know if I can take it any further than that, BZ.
Well, I would agree. I would agree. The people we're watching pass, you get to a certain age, parenthesis, BZ, you old fart, and you see people that were your idols passing before you, and other people that are significant in your lifetime, and all you think of is, it's a comfort knowing that they're just present, and that comfort is gone. And now it's you. And it's like the Pastor Niemöller thing. The quote, you rode on their coattails or their cape. Now they're gone. Now it's you. Can you do it? Will you do it? I think everybody here has answered that question. I want to go through this very briefly. I might go into a little bit of overtime, maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so. This is Rush's final show of 2020. And this is what he said.
This is, in fact, the last program of the year for me. And, folks, I want to tell you at the outset here, to me, this is a very important program. I have very much that I want to say to all of you today. And I'm feeling very pressured. Not pressured. I'm feeling stage fright kind of thing. So much I want to say, and I want to say it correctly. I want to convey my feelings. And I want to do it right. I want to do it to the best of my ability. And I have found in circumstances like this that the best thing to do is not to think about it. Don't make it more pressure-packed than it already is. But it's very important. You all are very important. My family is very important to me. I've had a year now to reflect on the things that really matter. A year to reflect on the things that are completely relevant and important to me. And all of you are in that large conglomeration of people and things that are very important to me. I want to go back. Normally, by the way, I wait until the third hour of the program to. As I've always said that I usually use the Christmas program, such as this one, to engage in my thank yous and my thankfulness for the year, rather than at Thanksgiving. And I don't know why, something about Christmas. My childhood memories of it, the families getting together and the children making it what it was. My feelings of thankfulness always surface. My feelings of great gratitude always surface at the Christmas time of year. And it's no different this year. Now, in January of this year, toward the end of the month, I received a diagnosis. You all know, but there's something I want to say about it. Stage 4, advanced lung cancer, terminal diagnosis. The objective of everybody involved was to extend life for as long as possible, as enjoyably as possible. Now, many of you have been through this. Lots of you have been through this, as individuals, as families. And you know what that means. Medical treatment that is designed to attack the disease as greatly as possible while maintaining a quality of life that makes it worth it. Some people can't deal with the side effects of chemo or other forms of treatment. Well, back in late January, when I received this diagnosis, and I was shocked. I was stunned and I was in denial for about a week. I mean, I'm Rush Limbaugh. I'm Mr. Big, the vast right-wing conspiracy. I mean, I'm indestructible. This can't be right. But it was. And what I didn't know at the time, that I learned later in the course of the year, was that I wasn't expected to be alive today. I wasn't expected to make it to October and then to November and then to December. And yet, here I am. And today, got some problems, but I'm feeling pretty good today. God's with me today. God knows how important this program is to me today. And I'm feeling natural in terms of energy, normal in terms of energy. And I'm feeling entirely capable of doing it today. I have been blessed. I mentioned to all of you back in the early days, sometime, I guess, this might have been in February. It was, I think, either during or shortly after I had received the Presidential Medal of Freedom at this year's State of the Union address by President Trump in the House chamber. By the way, something I really hoped that he had a marvelous speech last night, 4-minute speech on the COVID relief debacle coming out of the Congress that should be studied in a master's course in communication. It was clear, it was concise, it was well-paced, it was powerful, it was on brand, and it was classic. It was the kind of speech only an outsider could have made. And I really hoped that Trump would sit down and start ripping up the bill as Pelosi ripped up his speech. You know, when she began to rip up his speech is when he began the presentation of the medal to me, seated next to his wife, the First Lady Melania, and I turned my back to her, which is proper. She was the one who actually put the medal around my neck. And I thought it would have been great if Trump would have ripped up that bill, but he didn't. And that's understandable as well. But I remember saying to all of you at that time that I had a little bit of understanding of something that had perplexed me for a lot of my life, and that was Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse, New York Yankees, set the record for consecutive games played until Cal Ripken came along decades later and broke it. And on the day that Ripken, or the day that Lou Gehrig announced that he had his disease that was forcing him to retire from Major League Baseball, he said to the sold-out Yankee Stadium, "Today I feel like the luckiest man on the face of the earth." And I didn't understand that. I mean, here's a guy who had just been diagnosed with the most terminal of terminal diseases. And I said, this can't be real. You can't really think he's the luckiest guy in the world. This is just something that he's saying because it will play well. I don't mean to be insulting Lou Gehrig. Don't misunderstand. I'm just thinking that how in the world, if you're being honest, can you feel like you're the luckiest man on the face of the earth? Well, when I got my diagnosis and when I began to receive all of the outpouring of love and affection from everywhere in my life, from so many of you in so many ways, and from my family who, man, they have supported me my entire career, even during times it would have been understandable and easy for them to say, "Rush who? We don't know this guy." But that never happened. I mean, I've been totally supported by virtually everybody in my family. I've been propped up. I have been defended. I've been made to look better than I am. My lovely wife, Catherine, has done so much in that regard. She has done so much with RushLimbaugh.com and with the charitable efforts that we have engaged in, and all of it has been to my benefit. All of it has been for the and yours. It's the benefit of people who are the recipients of our efforts. So many people have put me first in all of this, and I understand now what Lou Gehrig meant, because I certainly feel like that. I feel extremely fortunate and lucky. And because I have outlived the diagnosis, I've been able to receive and hear and process some of the most wonderful, nice things about me that I might not have ever heard had I not gotten sick. Begin to think how many people who pass away never hear the eulogies, never hear the the thank yous. I've been very lucky, folks, and I can't tell you how many ways. When this kind of thing befalls you, it's hard not to become self-focused. It's hard to not just think of yourself, and it's hard to think that everybody's going to drop what they're doing and deal with me, with you. You have to guard against that, because this is, to the family, this is as disrupting, it's as upsetting as it is to me, and in some cases even more so. So I can't be self-absorbed about it when that is the tendency, when you are told that you've got a due date, you have an expiration date. A lot of people never get told that, and so they don't face life this way. This is not a complaint. I'm simply, this is why I say so much I want to say today, and so much I want to say well, so much I want to say exactly as I'm feeling it. Because my point in all of this today is gratitude. My point in everything today that I share with you about this is to say thanks and to tell everybody involved how much I love you from the bottom of a sizable and growing and still beating heart. And there's room for much more. All because I've learned what love really is during this. You know, I have a philosophy. There's good that happens in everything. It may not reveal itself immediately. And even in the most dire circumstances, if you just wait, if you just remain open to things, the good in it will reveal itself. And that has happened to me as well in countless ways. You know, I mentioned Catherine. Don't misunderstand. She's done much more than just redesign a website and shepherd the RushLimbaugh.com store. She shepherded the charitable efforts, the Betsy Ross, Stand Up for Betsy Ross. That amount of money we generated for the Tunnel to Towers organization, just incredible stuff. And it was all done for me. Well, and the beneficiaries of the church, it was all done for me. All of this was done for me. So many people have done things this year for me. And it's not embarrassing. It's just gratifying. And it has helped me to see so much, so clearly, about the goodness of people and their decency. And it's confirmed so much of my instinctive beliefs about people. For example, the alleged president-elect Joe Biden holiday message: our darkest days are ahead of us. Well, for some of us, that's absolutely true. But folks, I have to tell you, if I were president-elect of the country, it's the last thing I would say. And even if I believed it, I doubt that I would put it this way. But I don't believe this anyway. Darkest days are ahead of us. What a bleak way of looking at things. This is during a press briefing yesterday. Said the worst is yet to come in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. Which is weird, given that Biden has repeatedly claimed that it's Trump who's killing Americans with COVID. And so Trump's going to be gone soon, so why are our darkest days ahead of us when Trump is leaving, if Trump's responsible for all of this? But my point is, yeah, the virus is what it is, but we adapt. I talked about this yesterday. We Americans have adapted to our problems. We've adapted to changing evolutionary things in our lives, in our country, because of our freedom. Our freedom has allowed our adaptability. If disaster is coming our way, we don't just sit there and endure it. We come up with ways to avoid it, to beat it back, to overcome it, but we don't just sit there and accept it. And as such, we don't just resign ourselves to the fact that we're living in the darkest days, because we, at least to this point, still have the greatest degree of freedom of any people on earth. Now, it's under assault and under attack, and we all know this. But I don't believe our darkest days are ahead of us. I never have. Like people have been asking, you've always told us it'd be time to panic. Well, it's never time to panic, folks. There's never, ever going to be time to give up on our country. It'll never be time to give up on the United States. It'll never be time to give up on yourself. Trust me. So, we're going to do a real program today. And in the process of the real program, I'm going to be sharing the thoughts I want to share with you today. I'm going to just do it at random whenever it hits me, whenever I feel it. I got to take a break right now. I'm a little long here. We'll be back. We will continue. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for being part of this audience for 30 years, 32, whatever it is. It's just mind-boggling.
So how do you guys want to be known? Jeremy Hansen, how do you want to be known when it's your time?
After listening to that, I have to say I'm the most blessed man in the world. I guess that's how I want to be known. You know, I've always done things in a way where my family has always been most important. My children have always been most important, and I want to be known as somebody that was honest, somebody that was a fighter, and somebody that was not a hypocrite. And you know what? My life, I want to shine for other people, to be a leader. And that's it.
Ken McClinton, how would you like to be known?
I would like to be known as the one guy you could always depend on, leave at the table when the check came. No.
I know that guy. I know that guy.
You know that. No, while I was listening to Rush, when I was younger, I wanted to be the most glorious person on the face of the earth. I wanted to have fame. I wanted to have fortune. I wanted to have notoriety. I wanted to have power and influence. But the older I get, there are only two people I really want to impress in all of my life. And that's my daughter and my wife. And I hope that they would say he was a good man who loved us dearly.
Jack Alexander, how would you like to be known?
My family have always been my strongest support, and you know that they've seen me through some of the worst times in my life. The public side of me, I hope I'm remembered as, even though I'm not a citizen, I hope they see me as a patriot, as someone that desperately loves the United States, as someone who has tried to give an accurate accounting of what it means, the immigrant experience of loving America. I hope that that's how the public side of my life will be remembered. You know, people know I was a soldier for many years, and you know that has its own special place especially in Americans' hearts. Not so much amongst Australians, but amongst everyone in the United States. Those people who put on the uniform, whether it be military or law enforcement, always have a special blessed place in the hearts of most of true Americans. So I hope that on top of that, I add that immigrant patriot experience, and I'll be remembered for that.
We're not perfect. Rush Limbaugh wasn't perfect. I am far from perfect. But I think Rush Limbaugh pretty much nailed it. And I think that's how we're all going to remember Rush Limbaugh. I'm going to have a final say. Before I do that, Jeremy Hansen, can you tell people about your shows and where you can be found and heard, please? And thank you for being here tonight, sir.
Thank you, BZ. Spreaker.com/Unleash01, 5 o'clock Central Time, PM, that is. And it's apolitical. And you know what? 9 o'clock in the morning, if you need some laughter, if you need some fun and want a little bit about what's going on, same place. Thank you, BZ.
Thank you, sir. Ken McClinton, can you tell us about your shows?
TECNTV.com is a family of Christian, conservative, constitutional, capitalistic, individual sovereignty shows. We've just expanded to Nigeria. We will be starting a world news show from there. We will also have urban conservative news, talk, and movies. So we are trying to set a pace of which other people will follow. That's TECNTV.com.
Perfect. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it. If you haven't read it, I'm sorry. And Jack Alexander, where can you be found? And tell us about your show, please.
Apparently, found hiding in the corner.
Yeah. Look, there it is.
Oh, man. JackAlexanderExperiment.com is the website. You'll find the audio versions of my podcasts everywhere that podcasts are found, including now Audible. I've got social media presences on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, MagaBook, Pro America Only, MeWe. You'll also find my videos on YouTube and Rumble as well.
Gentlemen, Jeremy, thank you for being here tonight. Ken, thank you for being here tonight. Jack, thank you for being here tonight.
Pleasure.
Read the article that Mark Stein wrote yesterday about Rush Limbaugh. Remember that Rush used to say that he had talent on loan from God. I think Mark Stein wrote the best finalizing sentence in his article praising Rush. He said, to modify Rush's tagline, this is talent returned to God. I think that's perfect. Thank you for listening tonight.